Okay, so the function we have here today is f of x equals negative 2x squared minus 6x all over x squared minus 4. So the first thing we're going to do is find out what the vertical asymptote is. And so how we do that is we would find out, look at the denominator, which is x squared minus 4. We would equal that 0, and so x squared would equal 4. And so the square root of 4 would be plus or minus 2. So that's the restriction. X cannot equals plus or minus 2. And so that would also be the vertical asymptote at x equals plus or minus 2. So now that we figured out what the vertical asymptote is, we have to find out whether there's a horizontal asymptote or a linear oblique asymptote. In a horizontal asymptote, the degrees in the numerator and the denominator are both equal, or the denominator degree, like the degree in the denominator is larger than the degree in the numerator. In this case, since both of them are equal, we know that there is a horizontal asymptote. And so in order to find out what the horizontal asymptote is, we would take the degree in the denominator and divide it by all the terms in the numerator and the denominator. And so we would get negative 2 over 1, which is technically negative 2 minus 0 over 1 minus 0, but the zeros are irrelevant, so it wouldn't really matter, and we would get negative 2. And so the horizontal asymptote is at y equals negative 2. Now that we figured out what the asymptotes are, where they are, we need to find out what the end behaviors look like. So for the vertical asymptote, we would just basically, add 0.001 to the 2, and we would basically sub this value into each x, value into the function. And so we get negative 5,002.24999, which is a large negative value. So if x is 2.001, the end behavior would be a large negative value, so it'd go down. Now we would do 2 minus 0.001, which would get 1.999. We would, plug this into the function, and then the x values in the function, and we would get 4,997, which is a large positive value. So if x is 1.999, we would get a large positive value, which will make, the end behavior of the function go up. Now, for the negative 2.001, we subbed it in. I didn't show my work because it's just repetitive. You would sub it into the same thing, the same function, the same x values, but this time we'd get 999.249, large positive value. And for the negative 1.999, it's a negative 1,000, pretty much the same thing, but instead it's a large negative value. So we can see that both here, the values have switched, like the end behaviors are now opposite. And for the horizontal asymptote, we would just sub in 100 to see whether if we would go left and right, what the end behaviors would look like. In this case, if we put in 100, we would get negative 2.0608, which means that it is below the horizontal asymptote, because we do know that the horizontal asymptote is at y equals negative 2, and negative 2.0608 is below negative 2. And over here, if you sub in a negative 100, we get a negative 1.9407, which is above the horizontal asymptote at negative 2. So now that we've figured out what the asymptotes look like, the end behaviors look like, we'll look at the POI, which is the point of intersection. In this case, we would just grab our horizontal asymptote and make it equal to the function we're provided with. And so we get negative 2 equals negative 2, we just do this. And if we multiply this with this, we get negative 2x squared plus 8 equal the function, the numerator part. And then we get x equals negative 4 over 3. So that's the x value. And the y value would be negative 2. There's no need to sub this into the equation because we already know that the y value is negative 2. So this is our point of intersection. The x-intercept will just make the entire function equal 0. And so we just do that. Look at we'd factor the negative 2 out, negative 2x out. And so we'd get x equals 0 and x equals negative 3. For the y-intercept, we'll just make the x values all equal 0. And we would get 0 over negative 4, which is 0. So these are your intercepts, the POI, and how our end behaviors would look like, and our asymptotes. So now moving on to how our graph would look like. This is how our graph would look like. We've got the asymptotes. So we've got x equals negative 2, x equals 2, and y equals negative 2. So these are our three asymptotes. This is our POI, negative 4 over 3 and negative 2. And these are our x-intercepts. So we've got negative 3 and we've got 0. Now we just, look at the end behaviors and we just make our graph. And this is what it looks like from a bit far. This is an 8x8 scale that I drew. And these are what the end behaviors look like. And this is how the graph looks like, essentially. It just, crosses this horizontal asymptote. And yeah.